Hello, my name is Rusty Coones, and I have James Lombardo Sr., founder of the Lombardo Group, comprised of him and his son, James Jr. He's represented ABATE and California motorcycle dealers for 30 plus years. This is the man, or actually, this is the team, half of the team, that has been protecting bikers' rights for many years. A lot of you wouldn't know this. These are the guys on the front line more than anybody. And I think this is very important to hear what he has to say. How you doing, James?
Good. How are you?
Great. I'm glad to have you here, man. I really appreciate you taking out the time to talk to us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Right on. So look, you've got a heck of a story here. I mean, you've done a lot of really critical work over the years and some pretty interesting stuff. But I think the best way to do it is we need to go back to the beginning where you started in lobbying. So was your first lobbying back around the Teamsters and Cesar Chavez, or?
Yeah, I started in 1970 as an intern. My mother worked for was the Rules Committee secretary, and I was going to school at San Diego State. I wanted to stay down and stay. Who doesn't want to stay in San Diego in the summer? And the Teamster lobbyists used to come and sit in the office, which was just outside the assembly chambers. And in those days, there were no TVs, there was no internet. You had what was called a squawk box, and you could listen to what was going on the floor by sitting there. And so my mom said, my son's looking for a job. Do you know of any jobs? So he called down, and I called around the different Teamster locals, and there was a recession at that time, and there were no jobs. And so he came back the next day and asked how it was doing. She said, no jobs. And he said, well, maybe he could be a babysitter for us, for the Teamsters. So my mom called me back and said, okay, you got a job in Sacramento. You could be a babysitter for the Teamsters. I said, Mother, going to school to become a teacher, I don't want to hold a gun on a guy in a motel room all summer long, And she goes, no. And of course, Hoffa was still alive at that point. So she calls me back the next day and she says, no. It gets so busy at certain times of the year that they've got so many committees going on. You'd sit in a committee and babysit that bill. And then if that bill came up, you'd go get a lobbyist in another committee, have him go, and then you babysit that bill. So that's how I got started. And then 2 years later, when I was graduating, my boss called me and said, would you like to go to work for the Teamsters? And I said, shoot, again, there were no jobs. And so that's how I got started,
And that was the California Trucking Association?
No, that was the California Teamsters Legislative Council.
So the Trucking Association also after that?
Yeah. Then after that, I ended up going to work for the Trucking Association, which of course, they're the bosses of the Teamsters. Mm-hmm. And the head of that called me up and says, you want to go to work for me? And I said, well, many talks. And he says, so I'm meeting with him. I said, why do you want me to work for you? He says, because you've been nothing but a pain in the ass for us. So I'd rather hire you. Stop the pain. So,
that was smart.
Yeah,
that was real smart.
And then a few years later, another group came to me, a logging group that wanted a lobbyist from Shasta County. So I ended up leaving the Trucking Association in '82, founding my own company. And over the years, I've had various clients. But in about 88, that's when the helmet bills came in. Of course, I was a transportation, mainly a lobbyist. And that's how I ran across the motorcycle riders groups.
That's when you started working with ABATE and the Motorcycle Dealers Association?
Well, actually, I started working for a group called the California Motorcyclists Association. It was by a guy named Wayne Thomas and a guy named Otto Felix. You probably don't remember. He was Mr. Safeway in Southern California. He was a Safeway man on the ads. And they had, they had a lot of Hollywood actors and writers, et cetera. And a lot of the Harley dealers wanted to fight the helmet law. And so they formed this California Motorcyclists Association. And I ended up going to work for them. And so one of the times they had the bill up, they brought up Lorenzo Lamas and Mickey Rourke to testify. And so we're standing outside the room and we're waiting with probably another 20 people to go in the room because the room was packed. And we're looking at Mickey Rourke's board and he's walking the hallways. So he goes down the hallways about 100 feet away. And he's standing in this opening in the historical part of the Capitol. And they're going, oh, probably want an autograph. Oh, all right. All of a sudden, they hand Mickey the camera, have him take a picture of him and walk away. And Lorenzo, he says, they probably had no clue who he was. You know, he's taking a picture. So he came back and Lorenzo was just riding his ass. It was just hysterical.
That's hilarious, man.
Then we went in to testify, and Mickey and Lorenzo and a lot of us lined up to testify, and they brought some helmets up. And we had 3 female senators, Senator Vujic from Dinuba, Senator Morgan from San Jose, Senator Bergensen from Newport Beach, part of the committee. And so Lorenzo does his testimony. He says, all right, why don't you try on helmets if you think it's so much fun to wear one of these? So he goes up to Roseanne Vujic and she's going, oh, I don't want to mess up my hair. And he says, well, neither do I. So, as only Lorenzo could, these 3 female senators to put on a motorcycle helmet. And they were a little ticked because it gave them that was the bouffant hairdo era, you know.
Oh, so, yeah. Crushing their hair, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So the interesting part then was Becky Morgan from San Jose. They had the San Jose Sharks hockey team. And she said, you know, in hockey, they didn't wear helmets, but because of the danger with sticks and puck and everything, they're finally requiring them to wear helmets. But what they did was they grandfathered in the existing players and only required it for the new players. So I'll offer an amendment here today that says that if you're 30 years of age, when this bill is signed, you don't have to wear a helmet. And so the guys at the table are talking and I'm going, take it, you know? And they said, no, that's the principle of it, not. And so they refused it. So that would have happened.
So it ended up being all or nothing, and it was everybody could have been 30 and up, huh?
Yeah, so we'd have qualified.
Like playing poker, you know, you just don't know sometimes, you know?
I do, that's my job. I'm looking at the votes going, guys, this is not going to get better if we don't take this. You know, that's what a lobbyist does. We count votes, you know.
Wow. What a difference that would have made, huh?
Yeah. And then another part of that is when the bill was moving through, this group brought up with the guy that started in Hunter, the LA Rams football tight end, going blank. And John Snyder from Dukes of Hazzard and Eric Burton of the Animals. They came up to lobby. I'm looking down my window. I could see where the van pulls up and John Snyder gets out. And I'm going, okay. And then this big guy has to duck and go out. And I go, okay, that's Hunter. And then the little shorter guy, Eric Burton, gets out. I go, well, that's got to be Eric Burton. So we went across the street and we were lobbying the different members and stuff. And the governor's office heard that these guys were around. And so they wanted them to come down and go through the governor's office. And so I had arranged for them to be introduced on the assembly floor. And so I'm outside there at 12 o'clock and they're in session. I keep looking, where are they? And the guy keeps coming out, his staff are going, Willie wants to introduce them, where are they? I go, they're touring the governor's office. I don't know. Half hour later, they come back, goes, where are they? I said, I don't know. They're touring the governor's office. All of a sudden at 1 o'clock, they come just meandering down the hallway towards me. I go, where the hell have you guys been with the governor? I said, yes, you're touring the governor's office. No. He heard we were here and they wanted to meet us. And so Duke Mason meets with him and he says to Hunter, he says, you know, you're my favorite TV show. I make sure that if I'm gone, my wife records it. Don't tell anybody that, but I watch all the episodes. You know?
Right on, man.
And then after that, the bill got over in the Senate, and I got a call from the American Motorcyclists Association, a guy named Rob Racer, who was the governmental affairs person for him. And I'd known him from the year before and that on lobbying against the helmet bill. And he called and says, can you get a meeting? Jay Leno called me and he wants to go up and lobby. And I said, sure. Who's Jay Leno? And Rob laughs like that. I go, what? He goes, who's Jay Leno? I said, I don't know who Jay Leno is. And this is, 90. And he says, he sits in for Johnny Carson. I said, I don't stay up that late. Jesus Christ. He says he does the Dorito commercials. I said, oh, so he's a comedian. So that's why it's supposed to be funny. I wasn't getting it. So the next day, I had my secretary call over to make the appointments. And so she comes back in an hour later and says, okay, we have the appointments. And I said, Renee, no, it's with the senator, not with the staff. And she said, it's with the senator. I was like, I've never, and at that point, it was 20 years, ever had all my meetings with senators that quickly. So Jay comes to town, he comes to the office, and I said, I got to apologize to you, Jay. Now I've watched a couple of your shows, but I don't stay up that late, normally. And he laughed. He says, neither do I. He says, we record those at 4. I'm in bed back home by 8 o'clock, So the feelings weren't hurt. So we went across, and the first office we walk into, we open the door, and we walk in, and the secretary goes, oh, Mr. Leno, Mr. Leno. And she comes running over, oh, can I get a picture with him? And I looked at him and I said, okay, I don't know if the senator wanted to see Jay Leno, but the secretaries and schedulers sure did.
So you need to have some celebrities with you to get those doors open, huh?
It helps. It definitely helps. But Jay was just terrific. He's just such a real person. I mean, as he'd walk down the hall, he's making eye contact, he's saying hi to people and stuff. Did a couple of pictures with people. Little stories. We went down, we were getting tired. And so we went down to take a break in the basement cafeteria. And there just happened to be a room that was kind of vacant. So we took it over. And we're sitting there, and there's a bunch of noise next door. They had some little partitions there. So I walk around the corner, and it's a 3rd grade class that's touring the Capitol. And they're looking through going, oh, it's Jay Leno, it's Jay Leno. Here I am. I didn't know Jay Leno, but these 3rd graders did, So I went back in, and he goes, Jay says, what's that? And I said, oh, it's a 3rd grade class. They're so excited you're over here. He says, let me finish my water and they can come over. And he sat there and did pictures, autographs. Didn't have to do that. It wasn't getting any points, anything.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just a guy, Yeah.
He is a great guy. I've seen him do a few things, and he's always witty as heck. I mean,
Yeah.
But
then the bill gets down to the governor's desk, right?
yeah.
So there's a guy named Steve Blankenship who is the governor's lobbyist. He works for the governor in the governor's office. And he and Dick Floyd, butted heads like on lots of different stuff. And so he had like a personal thing. He really wanted to get this bill, which is nice. And so as I was coming into the Capitol, I hear on the radio that the Highway Patrol just released this bulletin on safety. And one of the things was the California Motorcycle Safety Program that does motorcycle safety training had just done a review and found that 22% of the people that had taken the class, that they'd had fewer accidents and 22% fewer fatalities the year before because of the safety program. I thought, wow. So I called Steve and told him that. Then I got a copy of the article, and it said 59% of the people killed or injured on motorcycles didn't have a motorcycle license. Then the next paragraph says, worst of all is California, where 63.9% don't have motorcycle licensing. So I gave that to Steve too. So they had the governor and they're telling him the pros and cons and everything. And so I had called over to Sacramento Harley. A guy named Mike Shattuck was running it then, great guy, and asked him if I could get a full face helmet. So Steve told me the governor's head size. So I got the helmet, gave it to Steve. So he brought it into the office. And so they kind of finished wrapping it up. They said, Governor, why don't you put this helmet on? So he puts the helmet on and they're talking. Finally, he flips the face up. He goes, this is hot. He said, Governor, you're in an air conditioned office. How do you think it is in Bakersfield at midnight? You know? And he goes, what'd you say? He says, I can't hear you. And yeah,
That's another problem.
He gets up, and as he gets up, he bangs into the bookshelf. He says, and they said, that's what they say. They can't hear. It's too hot, and it blocks their vision. So that's when Steve said, you know, here's the problem with unlicensed riders, and they really need training. And the governor says, well, why don't we require everyone under 21 to have this class? And Blankenship says, okay, we can do that. We'll try to get that done. So he vetoed the bill. So the next year, that's when I came back and found Assemblywoman Bev Hansen to carry the bill. So our bill was going along the same time as the Floyd bill. And they both passed out. They both went to the governor, and the governor ended up signing Hansen's bill. And then he could veto the helmet bill, saying this is a much better way, which is ABATE's logo, American Brotherhood aimed towards education. We say educate, don't legislate. And so since that, over 1 million riders have passed the motorcycle safety class, all ages besides the under 21. And fatalities and accidents have been going down every year since we've enacted this program.
Yeah, I like that safety program. I know a lot of people that have went through it, and they start out with like 250s. You know, I think the ones they supply, and they work in a parking lot, and they get their skills at low speed down figure eights and all that, and they learn all the traffic safety. And I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, well, we actually introduced and got passed the bill that James and I took the class together. And there were 10 of us in the class, and 3 of us were kind of advanced riders and shouldn't be in the class. One guy was doing a wheelie on his bike. He'd been on a learner's permit for 3 years. He just kept extending it. And I said, you know, I probably shouldn't be in this class. And they said, no, you need to be in the advanced one-day class. And the problem is, if you take this class and you're under 21 or anybody, you get what's called a DL389 form. It's signed, and you go to DMV, you don't have to do the lollipop test over there. On a big bike, it's a mother. And so that's why a lot of people take it. So we said, well, why don't we introduce this bill? Went to the ABATE board and the legend group, and they said, sponsor it. So we got a guy named Jay Obernolte from Lake Arrowhead to get it introduced, and we got it passed. And now the CMSP offers, those training sites offer a one-day class. You take it, you pass it, you get the DL 389.
And when you do that DL 189?
Yeah, DL 389.
Okay, and then they just take that to the DMV. They don't have to do the drive test over there, correct?
Right.
Yeah, that's good. And they got the training instead of, you know, guessing about it and doing it the other way, where a lot of the time, you know.
I mean, even in the beginner class, I learned a lot of things, like, you know, look where you're turning. And as I went to drive home in my car, I kept looking over where I was turning. I did that for 2 or 3 days. It's like, I'm not on my motorcycle, you know.
Yeah, one of the biggest killers of riders nationwide is failure to negotiate a turn. It's where a lot of people get killed. And a lot of novice riders make the mistake of not looking through the turn, but looking straight in front of them.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. They taught me to keep looking left. And as I pull out of the parking lot, I'm doing a hard left with my neck. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely a good course there. Okay, so after you got that done, what was the next fight you had to work with?
Well, Wilson, then Governor Wilson came in the next year and we fought the bill, et cetera. And he ended up signing the bill. But then the federal government was coming in and saying, all right, if states don't have a motorcycle helmet law, we're going to take away your federal highway money. Now we're talking about millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like California gets almost $1 billion to help build roads. So it's a serious penalty. So that was really fighting us when we were introducing our helmet repeal bill. We did the next year, we put a bill in to repeal it. And so I was at a meeting in Ventura and they were talking about this and they said, we got to send Lombardo back there. And I said, oh, it's not in my contract, but nor expenses. And a guy named Bill Rinkus from Joshua Tree, is it out there in the desert, Joshua Tree Park?
Yeah,
anyway, he said, money talks, bullshit walks. He started passing around a hat. Pretty soon they had $2,000 to send me back there. So I went back to DC and to lobby to try to kill this bill. And of all things, it's the time that they're trying to confirm Clarence Thomas as a Supreme Court justice. And on every street corner, one side of in DC, it's the pro Clarence Thomas. On the other side is the anti. All four corners, all around the Capitol, they got these people with signs and stuff. So I'm going into the Capitol, and I walk into the office and I say, "Hey, I'm James Lombardo from California. Yeah, I want to talk about the helmet penalties bill." And they go, "Oh, hey, John, this guy wants to talk about motorcycles." I'm going, about the third office I did that. They go, "Hey, this person was talking about motorcycles." Funny, I said, "Why does everybody keep saying that?" Because everybody wants to talk about this Clarence Thomas stuff. Oh, it's so nice to get a breather, you know.
Now that was about what, 1991 or 92?
About 93, I think, 92, 93.
Okay.
Yeah, one of those, you know. So as aside, there's a restaurant right behind the Longworth building called Tortilla Factory. It's now out of business. And so at the end, at 5 o'clock, I was in there. It was the day they were taking up this boat, and there was an open window behind, and they had all of the back of it open. It's probably about 80 feet, 100 feet wide restaurant, and all the windows were open, and the street was packed with people wanting to hear the boat as they were taking it up. And I luckily somehow got in. I was sitting at the bar, and they got to like 47, and you'd hear 47, 47, 47 going out. I looked back. It was just packed, this whole street. Anybody that's been there would be amazed how many people, a couple thousand people just standing around. And so they finally got to 51, 51, 51. And so this person and they said, let's have a drink. So we had a drink. Took about 3 minutes for the bartender to get it over. We turned around and everybody was gone. It's like ghosts, you know, it had been done. So then I go back. So that did pass. But now the Republicans take control. And Newt Gingrich comes out with his contract with America. Here's 10 bills we have to pass. And in the meantime, Motorcycle Rights Foundation had put a bill in. So the ABATE sent me back to DC again. And so Wayne Curtin, who was the MRF lobbyist, and I met. And the first day, I'm going to go over to the Capitol. There's 10 people from Maine there. They're going to go across the street and lobby. And there's 5 people from Oregon. They're going to be there. And I walk into his office, and they introduce me, and they go, "So where's the rest of your group?" And Wayne goes, "No, he's by himself." And they go, "Ha ha ha ha! Yeah, we're going to get more co-sponsors than you." And Wayne says, "I wouldn't bet on that." So at the end of the week, well, next thing is I have a tie on it's a Looney Tunes tie, and it's got Daffy Duck and Porky Pig and that. So I go into my first office. I want to talk about now again. My timing. I come back. It's the week they're doing the impeachment of Bill Clinton. So we've got, again, all these people on the sides of the street. And as I go in the first office, they go, yes. And I go, hi, I'm James Lombardo from California with ABATE. I want to talk about repealing the penalty provisions on the motor vehicle fund. Oh my God. Hey, do you want to talk to him? Oh yeah. So they come over and the person goes, nice tie. I go, oh, thank you, you know. And so go to the next office. I go in, same thing. Talk to people, nice tie. So I go back and see Wayne at the end of the day. He couldn't come with me. And I'm saying, you know, this is crazy. I'm talking to these people and they go, nice tie. And he goes, well, that's really not a Washington, D.C. tie. I said, oh, okay. So the next day, Wayne and I go in. We want to talk to the congressman. We go in. The secretary says, nice tie. Wayne goes, 16. So at the end of the week, we got done. There were 40 offices that had said, nice tie. But in the meantime, we get together with the group. Part of that story I want to go here is one of the persons I talked to is Sonny Bono, who was, of course, a congressman at the time. So I went in to see him in his office on the 7th floor in this hole in the wall that they put in. And I go in to see Sonny and I give him my thing and he says, okay. Let me call my staff guy. So he calls his chief of staff and he comes in, tells me, oh, they want us to co-sign on this bill to repeal the penalty provisions. What should I do? I told the motorcycle folks that I was going to repeal the helmet law, and the staffer and Sonny goes, oh, okay, I'll co-sign. So as I got to the door, you know, I turned around and I said, Sonny, I said, I really loved your songs. In 1965, I listened to them all summer in LA. And he put a big ass smile on his face. I wasn't sure how he was going to react, you know, but he appreciated that. So anyway, we're back over at Wayne's office on the end of the discussion. And so he says to people in Maine, how'd you do? Well, we didn't see any of our senators. We didn't see any of our congressmen, but we did see 3 staff people. Great. How about Oregon? How'd you do? And you go, well, we have 5 members and 2 senators. We saw 2 members. Great. All right. Lombardo from California, how'd you do? I got 32 co-authors. And they all laughed and they went, right. Wayne says, he got 32 co-authors.
Man.
And he saw 40 congressmen in person. And I was there for 25 of them.
Wow.
Shoot. And so aside from that, I went back to Newt Gingrich had this contract with America, all these bills, 10 of them. We were number 7 on the list of the most co-authors, and we weren't part of that contract. And that year, that penalty provision got repealed.
Wow, that's a heck of a job right there.
So then on the way back, I flew into Ohio for the meeting of the Mayans. And so I'm sitting at the dinner that night and they're doing all these awards and stuff. And Wayne Curtin's up there presiding over it, doing all that. There were like 800 or 1,000 people in this room. My first meeting of the Mayans. And he says, oh, and our last one, well, I've got this picture. I got an award. You want to see it? So Wayne says, I got this guy. The last one I'm going to give is you know, we've got enough votes to repeal the penalty provision on the helmet law. Everybody, you know, and he says, and the last award goes to this person who was back in DC, and they walk into the office and say, hey, I'm blank and blank from this state, and I'd like to talk to the congressman. And sure enough, we'd walk in and see the congressman. Not did we just see one congressman, we walked in and saw 40 congressmen. And he got 32 co-signatures. So the award goes to James Lombardo. And I'm like going, oh my God. So they had a guy, when I was doing my presentation for how do you do grassroots lobbying, and this guy was sketching in the back of the room. I'm thinking, oh, right. And so they ended up sketching me and giving me this award. Handsome dude. Yes, I still have it.
Great sketch. Was there a sketch artist that did that?
Yeah, as I say, this person was in the back of the room kind of sketching. I just thought he was bored with what was going on, but he ended up doing that thing.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it
Good
really
job,
is.
man. I mean, all those other guys, they were just getting what, 1 or 2 meetings with
Oh,
actual
staffers. Yeah.
with staffers. Yeah.
But see, I knew a lot, most of these congressmen because they were former assemblymen or senators in California. So when they went back there, they knew me and wanted to see me. They wanted to catch up on the gossip of what's going on in California, and stuff.
Now, have they ever tried to do that law again where they were withholding funds, or was that the last fight on that?
It was the last full fight as many times, but when you have a group like us in California, a lot of bills, proposals, and ideas get killed before they even get introduced because they
realize,
transportation committee, and I'm going to do this, and they say, oh no, this group's going to oppose you, that group. So the same thing by having MRF back there. When these proposals come up, they call over to the committees and they say, oh, you want to take on the motorcycle community? You want to have 1 million motorcycles back in DC or in Sacramento? So a lot of stuff gets blocked before it gets there because you have a lobbyist there full time.
That's amazing. I'll tell you what, man, we really appreciate it because we'd all be suffering under that kind of law right now if it wasn't for that work.
Yeah, well, as I said, we did a number of helmet law proposals. We came very close many times, and one of the first people to carry our first bill was a senator from San Diego named Denise DeCheney, and kind of put us on the map because right after the election, the next day, I got calls from several different lobbyists going, "What the hell did you do?" And the people, the locals down there didn't tell me, but they were really working hard in her campaign. And when she thanked everybody for helping her get reelected, et cetera, she said, finally, I really owe it to those motorcycles, those ABATE motorcycle riders back there, because they brought in 400 absentee ballots for my election, and I won by 40 votes.
Push it over the top.
It's getting involved. And so, once you've elected like somebody like that, you come in and say, hey, would you like to carry a bill? And they say, hell yeah, give it to me. Let's run with it. Yeah.
Right on. Right on. And what do we have here on the next subject?
Well, 90, let's go to number G. In 95, let's back up. In 93, the California Motorcycle Safety Program was running out of money because, as we told everybody, if you pass this law, people are going to quit riding. And sure enough, we went from about 800,000 riders down to 490,000 registered motorcycles. Wow. And so the DMV, the $2 that went to DMV to go to this dedicated fund wasn't going in, they were going broke. So the CHP lobbyist, who's an officer that works at headquarters, called me up and said, the fund's going to go broke if we don't do something to fund it. And I said, well, forget asking the motorcycles for another $1 on their registration. That's not going to happen. But I remembered that, believe it or not, the penalty assessment program, that when you get a ticket is lots and lots of money, started out at $10, and it was for high school driver training programs. That's what it was started for. It was $10. And then over the years, they'd come in with bills and said, oh, tax them on here for police safety, tax them on here for whatever safety and on this. And that's why it's so big, judicial court fees, et cetera. And so I said, well, driver training and motorcycle training, why don't we see if we can maybe get some of that money? And Denise DeCheney, the one we elected, is chairperson of Appropriations Committee. So I went to Denise, explained that the fund's going broke. She believed in the fund and the safety. Her husband is a rider. They used to go down to Tijuana every year and bring toys and different things for the people in Tijuana every year. So he was a dedicated writer. She used to ride in the back. And so I said, Denise, we need to do something. So we ended up tacking an amendment into the budget that appropriated $500,000 a year to the CMSP program.
Wow.
Wasn't until 2004, 2012, I think, that finance department caught up with that and said, wait a minute, that money shouldn't be going there. And they put an amendment in the budget that took that money away. So that was over about $15 million went into the CMSP program to keep it running. Yeah.
So when they switched that money back out of there, what happened to replace it?
Ridership has been going up.
Okay.
Over the years. It's back up to around, I think there's around 1,000,001 registered bikes. So that $2 gives about 2 million to the fund. It's doing okay, but it could use some more money down the road. So maybe we could expand this program and have it cover one-day rider classes, the advanced class for everybody, because the advanced class is where it really pays off. But let me go back now, probably to 1995,
Okay.
and that's when the first lane splitting bill was introduced by a lady from Ventura named Marion LaFollette, who was getting irritated about getting buzzed by loud pipes as she's driving on the freeway. So she put the bill in, and I was going in trying to kill the bill. And this is how working with different people happens to be. As the Highway Patrol, I called them up and said, you guys lane split, because if they don't have an emergency life and death situation and they're just going up to clear an accident, they have to lane split, and they can't have all that stuff on, but they still got to do it. I said, this is good. What are you guys going to go to exception and say, oh, it's unsafe for them, but not for us? So they helped kill the bill. Of course,
I'm glad that happened, because I'll tell you what, without lane splitting, especially in cities like LA, where I live, on a motorcycle, I mean, you've got air-cooled motors. And if you're sitting in traffic with an air-cooled motor, you're smoking the top end on your motor.
Yeah.
And lane splitting just is invaluable. I mean, it's the best tool we have.
Well, you know, in 2008, 2017, 18, a senator from San Jose introduced a bill to restrict lane splitting. And we were able to kill that bill first year and the second year. Then a senator from Fremont named someone Bill Quirk introduced another bill. And we were able to hold that bill, and they had the California Motorcycle Safety Program, which ABATE's a member. We've been a member since the beginning. I've sat on the committee for 25 years now as one of the advisors. And so we met for the entire year and finally came up with guidelines that said not to really exceed 15 to 20 miles an hour over what the traffic flow is.
Sure, yeah.
That we also got to know that cars need to yield the right of way for people to lane split. And if not, they can be ticketed. And so we got that through, but then the Highway Patrol attorney said, no, we can't call these guidelines. We'll call them tips. So those are now tips for you when you lane split.
Well, that's not in the law, but people, they can be cited for cutting you off when you're lane splitting, correct?
That's because of that guideline or tips.
Yeah.
Will write them up if they see it.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what, a lot of people that drive cars aren't aware that lane splitting is legal, because maybe they come from other states or whatever. They just don't know. And they'll cut you off on purpose sometimes. You know, it's crazy.
I was coming back from Reno one time just after the state line, and there was like about 20 motorcycles stacked up. They were out of staters. I don't know if they were Nevada or Utah. I rolled the window down and said, it's legal to lane split here. And the guy says, it is? I said, yeah, come on. And they all get on down. Never saw it yet.
Yeah, you know, sometimes on the weekends, holiday weekends and stuff, you just see going to Vegas. And it's like miles and miles of cars.
Yeah.
And man,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
when you're really glad to be on a motorcycle then.
Oh, shoot.
Jesus. So what do we got on the next thing on the list here?
Uh, Probably it'd be in 2014. Um, um, James and I, January, the third Friday in January is when you've had to go to what's called Legislative Council. That's the attorney for the Assembly and Senate. And you draft up a bill. Let's say we want to put a bill to allow motorcycles to go 75 miles an hour. So
Right.
you go, you give that to the legislator, he gives it to the leg count. They go into the vehicle code on speed. They take 65 miles an hour, 70 max, and they put a little A under there. It says motorcyclists can go 75 miles an hour. And that's how you get a bill introduced. Then you get the bill back in February, and by February 22nd, you have to get the bill introduced. You have to have a member introduce the bill. And for the last 10 years, there's been 2,500 bills introduced every year. So James and I get on the computer and read bill after bill after bill after bill. And that year, I scanned down, it said Tavley motorcycle smog checks. I flipped to the next bill. I'm going, wait a minute. What the F did I just read? I go back. I'm looking, it says motorcycle smog checks. I found it. I flip back to the other bill. That's that bill. I flip back down. I'm seeing things. I'm like, holy shit. Oh my God. So, that's how we got started. So I sent it off, and of course, ABATE agreed to oppose the bill, and we went on our way. So it got heard in the first committee, and boom, it went out of transportation with like 13 aye votes, 2 no votes. Then the next committee was appropriations. It went out of that committee like 12 aye votes, 2 no votes. So we've gone through 2 committees, we've got like 4 votes. So now it's on the floor, and you got a floor fight. So she takes up the bill at 9 o'clock in the morning, and she gets 16 votes. We get 19 no votes. She needs 21 votes. So I and the Harley lobbyists were at the back gate working the bill. So working the bill, you're out there. There's all these lobbyists in the back. And at this point, they've got the TVs up there. You can see what's going on. And they're sending in cards, the Lung Association, the Heart Association, all these do-gooders, because it's stressful, this noise, and on and on and on. We're over there going, loud pipes save lives. Loud pipes save lives, And so at the end of the day, 5 o'clock, they lift the call. She had 16 to 19, but they lift the call and they call the votes, and they're doing a bunch of bills, so I'm not really sure. And so we're right at the back gate, and this assemblyman from Inglewood comes out and he goes, Jimbo, he says, we killed the smog bill. I went, great. He says, yeah, we passed it to the assembly. She's going to put it into become a noise bill. And the Harley lobbyists and I look at each other like, oh my God. So we get it over in the assembly, and we're working the bill, and it's about a split committee on for and against it. And we get called in by the consultant. I've got the representative from Senator Pavley's office and me, and he says, a bill's going to go out. So we just got to see what we're going to do. So when the bill got over to the assembly, when she said it's a noise bill, she put in a $400 penalty. Your fine was $400 plus penalty assessments. That $10 fee was now up into the thousands. Your total ticket would have been around $2,000. Oh, it's a ticket, but it's now a moving violation fix-it ticket. And you have to now, if you haven't thrown your pipes away, go out and buy some pipes, pay somebody, or put them on yourself, then go get an officer to sign off on that. And then if you put them back on, you can get another moving violation and go through the whole thing. The final kicker was they were allowing meter maids to be able to go down the street with a mirror. And if they saw that you didn't have a serial number on your pipe, they could give you a ticket, and now you'd start the whole process. So finally, the consultant said, here's the deal. I think we do this forward. We're going to grandfather all the 2014 bikes and back. That this law doesn't apply, but it's going to apply for 2014 in the future. You're going to have your serial number on your pipes. And the Padley staffer goes, I don't want that. He goes, oh, then you don't have a bill. Oh, okay. We'll agree. And so that's what we did. We killed the noise bill and just grandfather their bills in. And then any new bikes really had to be compliant. And I got a lot of shit for that. I'm like, excuse me, we're talking bikes all the way back to 1982 when they first came up with noise standards are all grandfathered in. And it's just the new people that didn't know the law. I can't help it if people put under there for off-road use only on the pipe. Now, what's a meter maid supposed to think about that? It says for off-road, and you got it on-road, you know?
Yeah. That's a tough one. Man, you've had a heck of a battle over the years. I'll tell you what, though, personally, I appreciate all the work you've done. I mean, without you doing that, a lot of us wouldn't even be riding anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And by the way, you're a motorcycle rider.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. About your motorcycle riding.
Yeah, I got started. I was like about 12. My dad used to like to go fishing up here in Northern California. And so he bought I think it was a 225 Tiger Cup Triumph. And he put a big ass spoke on it. So we're going down on May 1st, opening day, and the snow had been snowing that year. It muddy everywhere, and he gets it stuck in the mud. And so he says, oh, I'm going to walk down and go fishing. And I said, leave me the keys. I'll get it out. So it's a Kickstarter, and I've got about 5 feet to get this out, and it's up to the middle of the rail on the tire. And I'm kickstarting, and I'm getting full throttle. I'm getting half an inch, 3 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, and not realizing I'm almost to the end. I'm still going full throttle. It finally pops out. I go zooming up. I hit this granite boulder, and it catapults me up into the air. I don't know if I did a somersault or what. I landed on the ground, and next thing, the Triumph lands right next to me, and I went, wow, I'm hooked. So I get back up, and I get down, see my dad. I go, how you doing? He goes, well, I got 12 fish. I go, catch my other 8. I'm going. So we're going along, and I'm telling this story just a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden I went, holy shoot, that bike could have landed on top of me.
Yeah.
It was this close. I mean, it was right next to me, you know? And then my dad would say, you want to go fishing? I go, no, but put the bike in, I'll go with you.
Now, when that bike was stuck in the mud, it was actually right up to the axle where it didn't even need a kickstand or anything. I mean, it just stood right there, correct?
I couldn't even move it. It was so stuck. I mean, it jammed in there. I mean, it took me probably 45 minutes to an hour to get that out. And I just kept pounding that thing and going and going and going.
How old were you when that happened?
12.
And what was your next experience with motorcycles after that?
I went all out, and I had a Suzuki 160 2-stroke. It was just a badass bike. Yeah, you go down the road, it goes ding, 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 ding.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm coming home from work. I was working at Lucky Stores as a box boy. And I'm coming home my first time in the rain. I come up to the first stop sign, hit the front brakes, and the bike goes. Oh, I better not do that. I get back on it, come up to the next side. I'm not going to use the front brake. I'm going to use the back brake. I goes the other way. So I get back. I ain't stopping for nothing. But it was at midnight, so you know. But I go to take it to school, and I'd see that 250 Honda Scrambler and that 305 Tiger Hawk with those nice sounding pipes, you know. I mean, you grew up in Sacramento. I mean, the Beach Boys used to come to Memorial Auditorium and ride the Hondas around Memorial Auditorium. So it was the thing to have.
Yeah. What'd you end up with next?
We've got a Triumph Scrambler,
Right? Was that the 650 or
the 900.
900?
Yeah.
Was that a later model? What year was that?
2020.
Oh, okay, yeah, later on. Is that what you're writing now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you
James,
like it?
oh, I love it. I've
Right on.
loved Triumph since that was my first bike, you know.
Does your son also ride?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right on.
He's a little better rider than me, youth.
Yeah.
But I beat him in the motorcycle safety class. I got a higher grade.
Right on. Well, that's good. I mean, you guys represent all the riders in California, and how many are there now that are registered?
Registers 1,100,000, and licensed motorcycles is 1,400,000.
Wow. And you guys actually ride, which is a big difference. You know, there's one thing having lobbyists that don't ride and they don't know what it's about. And here you guys, you know what it's about.
Yeah,
You've been doing it a long time. And
yeah,
we really appreciate that.
yeah.
Well, look, it's really been great having you on here. Do you have anything you want to add before we close it out?
Yeah, I would say that hopefully people will understand the importance of having somebody in the Capitol reading the bills, testifying on behalf of getting good bills through and killing the bad ones. So I'd hope that they'd join ABATE and also the Motorcycle Riders Foundation in Washington, D.C. That's the two groups that are active protecting motorcycle riding and motorcycle rights.
Yeah, people got to understand that you guys are the line of defense. You're on the front lines against unfair legislation, and there's nobody else there. So, you know, if you can support the MROs out there in your state, California, all over, and I also noticed, you know, that the MROs are all getting together now and starting to support each other a lot more, and I appreciate that. You know, but like I said, guys like you, I mean, there's very few of you, and we really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good talking to you, James.
All right. Thanks, Rusty.
Yeah, I hope to talk to you again.
All right, man.
Later.